Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Thank you for being here and joining me here today. I appreciate your time. So let's get to it. We have quite a bit on our agenda today. Today, we're going to be discussing diversity leadership paradigm and how cultural differences lead to challenges for leadership and among teams while team building. I hope you don't mind. I have my notes right in front of me here because if you know me, you know that I'm a talker and I can very easily get lost off topic. So I like to keep myself organized. So I'm going to keep my notes right here to be able to follow through without dragging you with me into a tangent of thoughts. So let's start by defining diversity. Let's talk about this a little bit. Diversity refers to the differences among individuals within a group, including age, gender, sexuality, religion, race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, and professional expertise. So it's a very broad term. Previous research on diversity has typically addressed many of these aspects altogether. However, in recent years, this broader perspective has become a little more complex. So studies have narrowed down their focus, defining diversity in more specific terms. So such as one research would focus on gender, while the other may focus on religion or gender identity. So additionally, diversity now carries dual meanings, encompassing changing demographics and societal inequality and incorporating inclusion into its modern definition. Organizations are increasingly aware of the importance of inclusion and are working to manage inclusive environments, ensuring that they accommodate the needs of all the employees to prevent any kind of discrimination. So cross-cultural studies compare cultures and explore how cultural contexts affect behavior, communication, values, and social structures, such as research can examine cultural differences and similarities to understand how cultural dimensions like individualism versus collectivism over power relationships and how these all affect human interactions. While diverse and cross-cultural are not interchangeable, but we do often see them complement one another in today's globalized environment when referring to context. So why is cross-cultural studies essential to us today? Well, the world has become like one large shopping mall. Borders have become blurred compared to before, and anyone can reach anything at the tip of their fingers. Technology has advanced very significantly and very rapidly, especially since the pandemic. However, organizations need to expand and grow to be able to meet the needs of today's customer and to be able to sustain success in the global arena. And globalization has become mandatory. Organizations who do not grow are bound to fail, as we've seen several fail during the pandemic for this very reason. Becoming global means more cultural diversity. The organizational environment has become significantly multicultural. Adopting the diversity leadership paradigm involves fostering an inclusive organizational culture that values and embraces diversity and multiculturalism. This approach allows leaders to develop culturally competent models while guiding diverse groups in multicultural environments. Today, leadership is shaped by social dynamics, rapid technological advancements, global changes, and shifting population demographics. While different cultures and societies have distinct worldviews, diversity persists within subgroups and individuals and among individuals. Diversity leadership acknowledges cultural differences while promoting effective leadership practices. So, what kind of dilemmas occur during cultural differences when there are cultural differences among team members or among individuals who work in an organization, including leadership itself? Diversity leads to various cultural differences. An inclusive workspace means valuing these cultural differences and the values in a safe space. This involves recognizing, respecting diversity, and understanding what kind of adjustments or accommodations are necessary. For example, The concept of overtime, which we discussed a few weeks ago, may not be the same in all cultures. So when working with a diverse team, it may be necessary to evaluate if every member understands what this concept stands for in the organizational culture and ensure everyone is on the same page. This could mean describing the idea to someone who comes from a culture where either the concept does not exist or it is calculated or treated differently. So growing up in one culture, we synthesize it. We learn the norms for our society. It becomes our reality and it becomes our normal. Whether we grow up in a family with different cultural norms than in a community we live in, and we start learning the community's values as well as our familial values, and when engaging with it. Or we migrate to another culture, there we still, at the beginning, we may have a cultural shock while integrating, but eventually we need to adapt to be part of that culture as well. We live in a diverse environment and work in heterogeneous and diverse spaces. Acknowledging this and understanding cultural differences when working with a diverse team is essential. A leader's task is to learn as much as possible about the cultures of the team members they are working with. Something that may seem as simple as such as the concept of overtime, like I just mentioned, may be a complicated issue that needs to be addressed with the team. It is vital to not assume everyone is on the same page just automatically and have the same expectations. Assumptions create spaces that are not inclusive. So how do we build teams when we have such a diverse team membership? Organizational culture is a phenomenon in which everyone participates. Everyone has a role to play. Often employees feel like administration or HR creates the organizational culture and does not take initiative, like that's the task of only the leaders. Whereas creating and sustaining a non-toxic and inclusive culture is everyone's responsibility, including each team member. A healthy organizational culture comprises of team members who can work together and each bring something to the table. But what happens when there are cultural differences among team members? Working in teams has become popular in contemporary times, while working individually functions. Boundaries and expertise can be limited. If individuals with specific or diverse expertise from teams work together instead, productivity can increase, and research shows us this. However, working in teams also comes with particular challenges. Teamwork is based on a common purpose. It's based on shared values. Having a shared objective creates movement with all members acting in unison. The movement is synergy. Reaching synergy is vital, as this is what nourishes the team spirit. If a certain synergy has not been achieved, problems can cause limitations at teamwork. In this case, all team members may not be moving together or working toward a common goal. The social environment could be threatened if one or more members do not like one another or cannot leave personal feelings behind, for example, due to having different cultural values or prejudice against one another. Now, culture is a broad term as well. Just like when we talked about diversity, a culture can be an umbrella term for so much. So when discussing cultural differences, we could be referring to someone who came from another organization and is used to doing things differently and just needs some time to adapt to the new and current organizational culture. It could also mean that the person has an entirely different cultural background altogether, a common scenario in today's world where organizations have become global and multicultural. If one or more team members come from diverse cultural settings, they may have different ways of doing things, and their values and norms may differ. Everyone needs to adapt to the cultural setting in which the organization exists. But I have observed that team members often take the current culture for granted, expecting everyone to behave similarly. Effective interpersonal communication is vital here. It is critical that members from different cultures not fear asking questions, and that others be open to questions while also asking questions to get to know their colleagues simultaneously. An inclusive space where open discussion occurs is mandatory. In addition, if anyone in the group needs a specific accommodation, this is also something that needs to be addressed. For example, for religious purposes, it could be prayer time, it could be fast, it could be breaking the fast time. I have observed also that this element often gets ignored, especially among teams in the US. Not everyone may feel comfortable enough to participate in open discussions due to their introverted personality, fear of retaliation, or because in their culture, one is not open to such discussions with colleagues or leadership if it's not a regular practice in that culture. Considering this, leadership can use anonymous or private surveys, one-on-one times with members to determine the needs of all team members, especially if there is a specific accommodation that needs to be made. If communication is lacking, cultural differences could cause various misunderstandings. Moreover, cultural differences will prevent the formation of team synergy, while it's also eliminating the sense of belonging for some of the members. Now, let's go back to the leadership perspective and talk about the leader of the team for a few minutes. An individual may be a talented leader, but this does not mean that they will naturally excel at being a leader. Being a leader needs practice and experience. It's not an easy job. Effective leadership starts with self-assessment, self-development, professional development, and self-actualization. Influential leadership has several layers, and learning does not end. Now, let's talk a little bit about what I mean by self-actualization. Self-actualization is one of our inner guides, a development one that causes us to strive. For example, a person who's shy or defenseless or constantly depends on others works on their character to gain the courage to become autonomous. This would be based on self-realization, self-awareness, where the person realizes that they have more potential and acts accordingly to straighten their weaknesses. In short, if we're not happy with our circumstances, we change them. Self-actualization has two major components: autonomy and openness to experience. Autonomy refers to the capacity of one to depend on themselves and regulate their actions and behaviors. Openness is the idea that new experiences and changes in behavior are welcome, information is no longer repressed, and past experiences are not a source of fear, creating an obstacle towards new experiences. Maslow estimated that only 1% of humans meet their full potential and reach the level of self-actualization. Self-actualization is an innate need, and various internal and external factors interfere with its realization process. At the beginning of this talk, we kind of discussed cultural differences and cultural priorities. Now, cultural priorities could be seen as one of these external factors. Maslow recommended that there are a few actions to encourage self-actualization. For example, make growth choices. Be aware of yourself and your weaknesses and what you need to do to strengthen these weaknesses. Be honest with yourself and others. Position yourself for peak experiences. Give up defensiveness. Let the self emerge and be open to new experiences. So briefly, self-actualization is a layer that we can reach through self-awareness by wanting to become autonomous and being open to experience. However, this is difficult to stray from in societal and cultural priorities. Do not care about what people think. This is challenging, though. In addition, we're creatures of habit, and we seek societal approval as long as we live in our communities. For this reason, we force ourselves to adapt. In this respect, we end up quickly drifting away from self-actualization, and this is problematic, especially if you're in a leadership position. Lastly, I would like to discuss how to manage culturally diverse teams effectively and how to become part of a team effectively. As briefly discussed earlier, now it's an exciting time to expand globally. International business was in a state of advancement before the pandemic, and many organizations that were experiencing success either failed or struggled during the pandemic as borders were shut and transportation was canceled. Domestically, the pandemic presented opportunities for several organizations, whereas it was a time to cut losses internationally. Life resumes from where we left off today, and the international market once again offers much opportunity. Rapid technological advancements have come to the rescue. The target audience can once again be perceived as the citizens of the world. Access to global markets is now once again more realistic, especially considering the technological advances that we've seen throughout the pandemic and since the pandemic. Several challenges, such as intercultural management practices, come into play during international expansion. Even while working domestically in one's local organizational environment, communication problems occur when diverse groups exist. Divisions are more evident globally, and there's much to consider. Uncertainty has always presented an obstacle to organizations, domestically and internationally. There is much unknown, particularly in the international arena. For this reason, specific factors must be considered and researched thoroughly. Necessary research areas include the political climate, the economic climate, and the sociocultural climate. So, political stability and the level of governmental intervention are the first layers of problems that we must consider while working with multicultural organizations. Is the country in question politically stable? How many interventions have occurred? Are there government interventions occurring at this time? If there is no political stability or the government is on a slippery slope, this could affect any investment made in that country, as it could present a loss in the end. Constant changes in the governmental figure can result in different decision-making processes, and agreements or negotiations made with the organizations within that country could quickly turn to null when a change occurs, if there's a change in leadership, and then the laws change as well. Problems in a country's economic climate usually go hand in hand with the political conditions. Bad decisions on the government's behalf directly affect the country's currency exchange rate. Fluctuations must be scrutinized. As for sociocultural aspects, traditions, religious reservations, customer taste, the way things are done, ideology, living standards, demographics, and things that are acceptable or unacceptable in that culture are examples of factors that need to be considered. On the other hand, in some instances, religious reservations can be a crucial factor. While identifying new paradigms, new and older theories can be consulted. In addition, the application for leadership can be examined in a situation-based manner. This will put together a culturally competent framework. Once this step is completed, the necessary training can be designed in the workspace. By training, what is meant is not training about the cultures themselves, not to teach a culture itself, but how to seek information about cultures and reach the necessary data when on a project. So, what needs to be done to reach organizational success while on a project with several challenges, such as cultural differences, cultural priorities, and interlingual or intralingual barriers. The strategy here should not be to try and teach everyone about the various cultures, but to teach them how to learn about the culture, seek the necessary knowledge, and ask the right questions. Critical thinking, informational literacy, and research skills, and self-actualization are vital. So, if designing a training program, I would suggest implementing several exercises where various scenarios are provided in different cultural contexts. Case studies can be used for these, for example, as well. Teams must work together to research in multiple contexts and solve the problems presented, including market research, customer profiles and trends, cultural priorities, cultural differences, and cultural requirements, such as accommodations. So to sum up, effective leaders must be culturally competent and open-minded with an innovative mindset. A leader is not expected to know everything. Learning is an endless cycle. Being open to learning is the key here. To do so, one must know how to learn and look for the necessary knowledge, which requires self-actualization, strong critical thinking, information literacy, media literacy, and research skills. These steps are the leader's task and the team's responsibility at the same time. In other words, leaders and their teams must work together on such quests to find knowledge, and the projects require mutual learning from all sides. For this reason, training programs must be designed to strengthen the critical thinking, information literacy, media literacy, research skills, and the self-actualization processes by providing practical exercises rather than focusing on lectures or presentations in order to provide a hands-on learning experience. Furthermore, healthy and productive teamwork is based on synergy. Synergy can only be reached when everyone on the team is on the same page. When there are cultural differences among team members, synergy cannot be formed immediately, as misunderstandings and problems can arise in everyone working together. In addition, not everyone's needs may be met if specific cultural accommodations are not in place. Team members must know one another and their cultural heritage, primarily when it affects their performance. Leadership must realize that they may also have to implement measures to support everyone on their teams to ensure organizational success. So, thank you so much for listening to me today. That concludes my presentation for you today. This has been a pleasure. If you have any questions or if there's anything you would like to further discuss with me, please don't hesitate to reach out or send me a comment, and I would welcome the opportunity to have further conversations with you. So have an amazing rest of the day. You can find the references I used for this talk today in the section below the video. So until next time, I wish you a wonderful day.